This is Call Me Didi, a podcast all about empowering you to become your best self while having a bit of fun.
Didi? What do you mean by that?
Didi, like your virtual big sister. Welcome to Call Me Didi. I'm your host Diva.
And I'm your host, Sanchi.
And welcome to today's episode.
Well, as we always start with a highlight of the week, do you want to go first, Diva?
Alrighty. My highlight of the week was a beautiful sunset that we saw when we went for a drive. So actually that morning we went to the Gurudwara, which was so nice. I love wearing Indian clothes and dressing up, and then just going to the Gurudwara for me is so special. I really like it. And then after that we got...
Wait, Diva is lying. She just wants to eat langar.
I also love langar. But I don't go for the langar, to be honest.
I know. I'm kidding.
I love food, so and langar was amazing. But yeah, and then we saw a really beautiful sunset, like genuinely such a beautiful sunset, and I felt like so present in that moment. So that was really, really beautiful.
I remember we were so excited that we were shouting and looking at each other, and the friend we went with, he's not that excited looking at the sunsets as we are, and he was just thinking what crazy people I'm with right now. Oh my god.
Even yesterday at dinner we were talking, a friend was showing us pictures. He was in Uluru and there's this rock in Uluru, and we were looking at a sunrise behind it, and we got so excited just thinking about that would have been such a beautiful moment. And and Sanchi, when she's excited, it shows, okay? Physically it shows, and everybody on the table was like, what is wrong with
these people? Yeah, we were talking about if we made time lapse for the night where the stars would be there and the sun would rise, and we got so excited thinking about it, and everybody was looking at us what is wrong with them?
Yeah. Anyway, what was your highlight of the week?
Well, my highlight of the week was taking a dip in the ocean. Actually, not a dip. Swimming in the ocean.
Yeah.
It's a recently learned new skill. I've been learning how to swim every Thursday. I go for classes, and then I also go for practice sessions. And then I just finally went into the ocean during sunset, and I literally swam, and it was the best feeling ever. Just purely because the same picture I have on my vision board, and it came to life, and I couldn't be more happier about it.
That's why you need a vision board.
Yes, you need a vision board.
Amazing.
Let's get into the episode. Okay, tell me, Diva, what are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about everything boundaries. We're talking about how to set them, what are signs that you need boundaries, our struggles with boundary setting. I've had a lot of struggles with boundary setting.
Damn.
And just some tips and tricks with boundary setting, because I think boundaries are a really good sign of self-love.
That's true.
And self-respect. And I think we should all have boundaries.
I agree with that.
Yeah. Maybe we should start with the signs that you need to set boundaries.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that the biggest sign is if you struggle to say no and you are kind of a people pleaser. What that exactly means is that you are kind of always trying to be liked by someone else, and it's usually when you try to avoid disappointment for the other person, and you just try to ignore your own needs and wants, and you just say yes all the time, even if you want to say no, and you just cannot say no.
Yeah, it's almost like you put their feelings and their wants on a pedestal above yours.
That's true, yes. And that actually happens with me a lot. I struggle in terms of work setting. I struggle with this a lot because I'm still starting out in my career, right? And I a lot of times feel imposter syndrome when it comes to my work. I feel like I'm not doing the amount of work, the quality of work I can produce. I'm not doing that. And for that, because I have that in the back of my mind, I always try to seek approval from my boss, and I'll always try to prove myself and because of that, I will always take on more work and I'll be like, yes, I'll do that. Yes, I'll do that. But now it has started to make me feel frustrated and just I am not feeling good. And now it is leading to decreased level of motivation. So it goes to show how if you don't respect yourself and you don't have that self-worth in terms of any setting, you try to prove yourself to others. Like you put them in the pedestal, as you said.
Yeah.
And so I struggle with this a lot, and I'm trying to improve and maintain some boundaries in that aspect.
Yes, you're doing very well now. I mean, you're trying, which
Yeah.
is what's important.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that if you're somebody who needs a lot of validation, see, you are not somebody who needs validation, but because I know you, right? But
Yeah.
obviously in this setting, you feel like you need to be validated.
Mm.
But if you think that in general or in specific settings, you're feeling the need to be validated by others, that's a sign that maybe, okay, you need boundaries in your life.
Yeah, true. And this usually arises a lot from the lack of self-love and self-respect. Like I feel if you don't trust yourself and you don't love yourself enough, you will constantly seek love and appreciation from others, to be liked by them, because you crave to be loved, right? You crave that feeling. And if you fail to give that to yourself, you would always seek that from others.
Yeah.
And that just, it's a constant loop that you're into.
That's true, actually. That's a good point. That if you are seeking that sort of validation and approval, then yes, there is a lack of self-love. Also, I think that if you find yourself tolerating disrespectful behavior from others, that's also a really clear sign, because it ties into exactly what you said.
Yeah.
You don't have enough self-love in you or self-respect in you to know that you deserve better than that.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to, like, this may also like be really shocking for some people and it's like might be hurtful, but you need to accept the fact that maybe the self-love component is something that you need to work on.
Yes, that's so true. Like for example, in my case, it's a deal breaker for me if someone talks to me in a bad language or just speaks very loudly to me, yell at me. I cannot tolerate that behavior. So I would be like, okay, I'll tell them once and then I'll be like, leave the conversation. That's it. I cannot tolerate this and I'll shut off. So yeah, it's really important to have boundaries in such areas where other people are disrespecting you.
Yeah. True.
Okay, now that we know what are the signs, I think we should talk about how do you set boundaries.
So I think the first step there is to know what your absolute non-negotiable boundaries are.
Yeah.
So what are things that are so unacceptable to you that you will just not budge from them in come what may? That these are boundaries that are strict, these are set, and these are so important to you that, yeah, there is no room for change there. So figure that out for yourself. Maybe sit down, write them down. For example, for me, one of these boundaries, which I've recently created, is I don't like other people controlling my time.
Yeah.
So in lots of instances previously, as like recent as last year, you know, friends would book a movie and be like, we booked a movie, we're going. And I allowed that kind of behavior for a long time.
Yeah.
But I used to get so annoyed because I'd be like, you know, I could have other things to do in that time. You can't just go and book a movie for me.
Yeah.
But I would still go and they'd be like, oh, like that's how that friendship worked and still works. I'm amazing friends with them. But it used to irritate me that people thought that they had control over my time.
Yeah.
Similarly, if somebody would be like, can we do this now? I'd just be like, no, I had other plans. Sorry.
Yeah.
You know, I do that a lot now and it makes me feel good because I need to be in control of my time. So yeah, that's important for me, but you need to work out what is important for you.
Yeah.
In many instances, let's say you can't, like Sanchi said, disrespect is a non-negotiable for her.
Yeah.
Maybe, you know, in a relationship setting, violence is a non-negotiable for you.
Yes.
Or cheating is a non-negotiable for you.
Yeah.
Or in a work setting, you know, you can set that boundary that I'm going to work from 9 to 5 and post 5, I will not work.
Yeah.
That's a non-negotiable for you.
Yeah.
But you need to set those.
Yeah, you need to sit with yourself, figure out what things are okay for you to have a little bit of flexibility in.
True.
But what are the things that you just cannot deal with and they are a blunt no for you, like straight up no. Anyways, let's move on to how do we communicate these boundaries to people in our lives or to ourselves.
Yeah. So in terms of that, I would suggest that you first do it nicely. Like, you don't have to be rude about it. You don't have to be mean about it.
Yeah.
You can start by saying, hey, I want to have a conversation with you about something that's been bothering me. Is now a good time?
Yeah.
Or even like, hey, like, I just want to have a quick chat with you.
Yeah.
And then you should explain to them how their actions make you feel,
Yeah.
how it's affecting you,
Yeah.
and maybe give a suggestion for what they could do differently,
Yeah.
or what is an alternative action that they could do.
Yeah.
And what's most important when you are setting these boundaries with somebody else
Yeah.
is that you need to have a sense of finality to the statement.
Yeah.
Like, you need to say it in such a way that there is no room for movement there. Like,
Yeah.
you're not going to budge on this boundary because it's so important to you, and the other person should know that.
Yeah, that is such a great point. Like, I think I am like that very naturally. Like, I would,
You are.
I would just go to the person and I would just bluntly communicate my boundary, but not in a way that it comes across as rude. I would always be polite about it. I would tell them what I'm trying to say, and then I'll be polite about it. But I think that politeness comes with the intent behind how you're communicating and where you're coming from. For example, I'm always coming from that area where it's more about respecting my time, myself, and like my space, and it's for my mental health. And if the other person can recognize that I respect myself, which is why I am communicating this boundary, and this is not like a backlash on the burnout that I'm feeling or the frustration that I'm feeling, it is always a positive conversation rather than it being something that's negative.
True.
And then again, the finality that you said, I try my best to communicate in a way where I would be like, okay, for example, if it's a little bit of formal setting, I would end it with, oh, yeah, thank you, and have a great day. That ends the conversation, and it's like, okay, this is what I've said, and I'm not gonna like negotiate further on it. I would not leave it open-ended.
Yeah. Like, if you're talking to a friend, for example,
Yeah.
right? That's something I've struggled with, friendship boundaries.
Yeah.
What I've realized is, instead of saying, I hope you can understand, or I hope you can see where I'm coming from,
Yeah.
it's more like, this is really important to me. That's all.
Yeah.
You know? Don't end it where there is room for
further negotiation.
Further negotiation.
Yeah. And unless you are flexible on it, yeah. But if it's something that's really important for you, just say that. Be like, okay, I do not tolerate yelling at me, right? And I would say that in such a tone that, hey, I do not accept this behavior from you, and I will not tolerate this at any cost. And if you continue to do this, I will just shut off this conversation and leave. That's it. You just have to say it in that way.
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay. I think let's get into like different settings and different areas of our life where we need to set boundaries, how we struggle with it, and what are we doing about it.
Yeah.
For example, like for me, my biggest area of struggle is at work, as I said. And a lot of times, to prove myself, I would say yes, yes, yes. But now that I'm realizing that I have only so much time in the day and I cannot fit everything, and now that it's starting to affect my mental health, I have gone back to my employers and I'm trying to communicate to them that it's leading to burnout and I'm not able to do everything as I used to do before because my workload is also increasing. I'm also doing side projects, and being very respectful about it, that this is happening in my life. This takes this much time and I don't have capacity for any more work. If you would like me to do this, I would really appreciate if you take this off my plate so that I can take on something else that you're offering.
Yeah.
So again, offering alternatives and being like, okay, if you think that doing events task is a priority, I will do that, but please take this off my plate.
Yeah, agreed. Especially in work settings, maybe think about also that, is this an environment that is conducive for the kind of person you're trying to be, or is it helping you in that boundary setting? So you've set those boundaries, but do they appreciate it? If they don't appreciate it, then you need to reflect on it.
Yeah, and be like, maybe try and look for things or situations or workplaces where they will respect them.
Yeah, true.
I feel like this is really hard to do when it comes to family setting, though, especially in cultures like South Asian cultures,
Yeah.
where it's just families a lot of times, just because of their subconscious reprogramming and their experiences, they don't really understand the concept of boundaries.
Yeah.
Do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, so especially Desi families or South Asian families, because we have such a, when we grow up, it's such a shared society. It's such a, you live in a community almost. So you do things together.
Yeah.
Everything, the food you eat at a table, you do that together,
Yeah.
right? You go out as a family together. You make decisions for the family.
Yeah.
Even a lot of times financial decisions are for the family.
Yeah.
Right? In so many families, money is shared.
Yeah.
Which, if you look at cultures outside of South Asian cultures, it's a very individual,
yeah.
correct, very individualistic society. So this is something I realized, right? When I came down here, boundaries between my friends who are not South Asians and their families are so healthy.
Yeah.
Because, and they're so set in stone.
Yeah.
Right? But in our families, because we've grown up that way, it's so hard to set those boundaries. But I still think it's worth setting those boundaries. You still need to communicate the boundaries to your parents or whoever it is in your family that you're struggling with. And see, like, there's a huge chance that they will still not understand.
Yes.
Or they will still not respect it.
Yeah.
But the idea is that you put it across in such a way that this is a bit of a non-negotiable boundary for you.
Yeah.
And if they don't understand, I would say maybe try to communicate it again. But at some point, you need to then just stop letting their actions or what they're doing affect you and move away from it.
Yeah.
And just, do whatever you want to do, however you want to do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. But how I usually tackle this issue is I would communicate it once. And if I can see that they are not gonna change their mind about it and they're gonna continue to do and say things that will hurt me, I will consciously remove myself from that situation. I will act like I'm listening, but I will not listen. And I will just not engage with them. For example, it happens a lot with me. I do not like to do makeup at all. Like, I hate it from my core. It's a very strong word, but it's so true. And it's so hard to go in family weddings and be like, it's a family wedding, very close to your, like, someone very close to you is getting married and everyone is getting ready. I'm also getting ready, but then relatives or people just in general will comment and say, why are you not putting lipstick? Why are you not putting any makeup? And I'm just so tired to constantly explain myself that I just don't like to do it, and they don't get it, which is okay. Maybe they have not seen something like that. It's fine. But I will do it once. But if they will constantly try to, like, pressure me into it and be like, maybe for my sake, do it, I don't take that comments very well, and I would just shut myself off and I would stop responding. And it might come across as very rude at that point when they're trying to talk to you and you just don't respond. But they will just get your point that you're not going to budge on it. And that's how I usually deal with it. I get really pissed. Sorry if it's just very personal.
Yeah. I struggle with it too, though, and I'm sure a lot of us listeners struggle with not parents, but like families, extended families sometimes, putting comments on your physical appearance.
Yeah.
Similar to makeup, right?
Yeah.
But also your weight or how you're looking or like something that's an insecurity to you also maybe. And you've communicated it to them.
Yes.
But they don't get it.
Yeah, and it can be so, like, it's so insensitive, but they just don't get it.
And yeah, sometimes this is what I have done. I've communicated it a few times and eventually I've seen a change happen.
Really?
Yeah. So in my case, it's still there. It still happens once in a while. But I have seen, but maybe because I knew that the people I'm speaking to, they have that in them to change behavior if you explain it to them.
Yeah.
But I've had to do it a few times.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess it also comes down to who you're talking to.
Yeah.
Who is it on the other side?
Yeah.
And also how important their words are to you.
That's true.
Yeah.
If it doesn't really matter, it doesn't really matter. You move on.
Yeah. But often, sometimes, especially in Desi families, the people you're talking to will either get really upset by what you've said.
Yeah.
Like, how could you even say this to them?
Yeah.
Because elders, like, you have to respect them, you have to touch their feet, you have to, listen to whatever they say.
Yeah.
But so that reaction could come, and also they might just fully ignore that conversation. Like it never happened. But you need to, and it's going to be uncomfortable for you to set that boundary in that instance.
That's true. It may be really, really uncomfortable, but you just have to do it for yourself.
You have to put yourself first.
Yeah, that's so important. Okay, let's move on to the next area. That's friendships. That's your area of struggle, Diva. Do you want to touch on it?
Yeah, this one's been a struggle. But what I've realized is it's not a struggle with all friendships. It's a struggle with certain friendships, especially the friendships which are really close to you.
Yes.
Because you don't want to lose the friendship.
Yeah.
But their actions affect you a lot.
Damn, that's so true.
Because if it's a friendship that is not so important to you, then it's easy to cut that off.
Yeah, true.
But when it's a friendship that's important, but their actions are affecting you, then it's hard. But you still need to put yourself first.
Yeah.
And if that means losing the friendship, then that's fine. Hopefully, you put your boundary across and you communicate it, and they have it in them to understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. I also feel like if you think that it's a very close person and you don't want to lose them and you always want to keep them in your life, right? But you try to place a boundary that's like really important to you and you communicate it to them in a polite manner, like once, twice, okay, maybe thrice. But they still continue to disrespect you. That goes to show that they genuinely don't respect this relationship and you.
And it speaks volumes about the person as well.
Yeah. And do you want to be friends with that person? Maybe not.
Maybe not.
Reconsider it.
Yeah. Sanchi is like smiling at me. See, I've had to recently communicate some boundaries to some people and I feel like there's a change coming.
That's good.
So I want to appreciate that change.
That's a really good thing. See, that goes to show that you communicated, and if they change their behavior, they do respect you and this relationship and they do want to keep it. So it's, if they want to, they will.
Yeah.
If they want to, they will. Just let's leave it at that.
Yeah. That's good.
And it also like ties into the next setting, which is relationships, right? Relationship is a part of your life and it's not your whole life. And I have been someone who used to struggle with this in the past and I got aware of it and then I moved past it. And then in future, I've taken action to not jump into something 100% and have that boundaries from the start.
Yeah.
And be like, okay, I'm gonna have those boundaries. I'm going to keep time to myself and then I'm going to spend some time with the person that I'm seeing and have those healthy boundaries and not be like, okay, my time, your time, same time, every time you and me together. No,
my time, your time, same time.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. But also you should have some boundaries that are non-negotiables from you in terms of the behavior of the other person.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, we spoke about violence and cheating, things like that. It should be a non-negotiable for you. If it's not, then you need to really reflect why it's not.
Yeah. I feel like other boundaries can be there as well. For example, as I said, that I don't tolerate bad language or yelling at me in any cost. And if we are sitting down and talking about the challenges that we are facing in our relationship, rather than sitting and having an adult and matured conversation, if you start like shouting at me, right, and like trying to defend yourself, but
gaslighting,
in a bad language, I would not tolerate that. I would shut that off. I would communicate that, hey, I do not tolerate this behavior or language. And if you cannot have a matured conversation with me, well,
that's it. Goodbye.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there could be other types of behaviors that are non-negotiable for you from the get-go. For example, I need somebody who communicates a lot. And if you're not communicating, like your just general communication, you can expect from a person. But if you're not, then that's it. Goodbye. like
maybe try to tell them first. This is what I expect.
That's true.
And then be like, goodbye.
Yeah, tell them, explain it to them. If it's not changing, behavior is not changing, then
again, that goes to show that they don't respect this relationship enough or you enough to change their behavior, which is not healthy.
Yeah. And the last form of boundary you need to set is for yourself.
Yes.
And this is almost the most important boundary.
Yeah.
Because like Sanchi said to me earlier, if you can't respect your boundaries, then how do you expect somebody else to respect your boundaries?
Yes, it's so important. And like, this is the only place where you set boundary for yourself and you are in control of following through, right?
True.
So as you said, if you can't respect that for yourself, how can you expect other people to respect your boundaries? Do you have an example of this, Diva?
For me, my boundaries, well, like I said earlier, my time is very important to me.
Yeah.
I'm trying to work on eating a bit more healthy food.
Yeah.
So very often, I want to be in control of the decisions I make relating to my food.
Yeah.
So even if that means saying no to Sanchi when she wants to eat something, I say it a lot now as opposed to before, which you may have noticed.
I agree.
I just say, no, this is... And sometimes, I'll slip, but then I know that I've slipped because I have slipped as opposed to somebody else influencing me.
Yeah.
So that to me is like, that's my boundary on myself, but also boundaries in terms of like whatever goal I'm trying to achieve, for example, if I might put a boundary that this is what I want to do in order to achieve this goal. And that's a boundary that I've set.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's almost like a discipline.
It's almost like the discipline is the highest form of self-love.
That is true. I love. Okay. I think this is a really good area to end our discussion on boundaries. I feel like it was a really good conversation.
It was. Actually, there's one last thing I want to say.
Yeah.
It's that when you set these boundaries with people, there's a high chance that they're going to get either angry or upset or agitated.
Yes.
Or they'll just shut off, or they'll ignore the boundary, or they'll make fun of the fact that you've tried to set a boundary, which happened with me. But you need to be firm with your boundaries, and you need to explain it to them, and don't let them walk all over you.
Yeah.
If, again, like we said before, it speaks a lot about a person on how they react to you setting your boundaries.
Yes.
And if you set a boundary and that affects your relationship with somebody, right? You might be scared that, oh, I'll be so lonely afterwards.
Yeah.
But you rather have that than have a relationship with somebody who doesn't respect you.
Yes. And put your self-love and self-worth down the dustbin.
Yeah.
Damn. Okay. And before we end this episode, I just want to say that all of this setting boundary concept is just so important. But before that, you really need to work on your self-awareness and self-love, because if you don't have that self-love in you, you will not be able to be firm about your boundaries. And just recognizing that you need to set boundaries is also one of the biggest things you have done for yourself. So if you after listening to this episode feel like, oh, I need to really set boundaries, very good. I'm very proud of you.
I'm also very proud of you.
Okay. Well,
if you do set boundaries, maybe leave us a message on Instagram.
Yeah, please tell us. We would love to hear.
Yeah, we'd love to hear, and yeah, hopefully we helped you in some capacity today.
Yes.
I want to come clean. Boundaries is something I still struggle with. But the idea is you put work into it.
Yes.
And you put active effort into healing for yourself.
Yeah.
And that's what's important.
Yeah. It's so important to have healthy relationships with yourself and with other people.
And with that, I think we can say goodbye to our listeners for today's episode.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.